Hey, what's up? My name is George Miller Jr. I'm a record collector. I was born in East Los Angeles at the General Hospital, and I was raised in Montebello, California. I was raised in Montebello. We lived with my grandmother. It was my mom, my dad, me. I probably lived in Montebello until I was about 10 years old. I think I was in the fourth grade. And yeah, we ended up moving out of Montebello. My mom, we ended up moving to West Covina, California. You know, I went to high school there, and I met a bunch of different people, different cultures, different things going on. And I was about, by the time what I really remember is when I was about 14, 13 years old is when I was going into high school, and just skateboarding and just hanging out with certain people and learning that from those people, what they do over there, skateboarding, surfing even. And there was dance crews in high school, that you had like breakdancing crews, you had party crews kicking off. There's just a mecca of everything just kicking off in high school. I'm sure everybody has the same story. So that's really what I remember. I think that's probably where most of my story really begins, is when I was really 13 on. Anything beforehand, just some kid shit, just a kid living at my grandma's. So yeah, back to the skateboarding aspect of it, man. I remember my grandmother still came over to visit us at our house, because we lived in West Covina. So my grandmother, I had a next door neighbor friend who was a skateboarder, and he was decently, not the best, but he was better than me. I didn't know how to skate at all. I used to just like watch him from afar and admire, like, wow, it was just so cool to see this person skateboard. And my grandmother, like about a week later, she ended up going, God bless her soul, and buying me like one of those generic skateboards, from like Zodi's or Target or something back in the day. And I got a skateboard, man. So it was also cool because I lived kind of far from the school, so I would use the skateboard instead of walking to school back and forth every day. I started taking my skateboard to school and skateboarding to school and skateboarding back home. And that right there in itself, like, pretty much taught me the fundamentals and the basics of how to catch my balance, how to like push and skateboard. And after about a few months of skateboarding, or actually about a month or two, I caught on pretty quick. My next door neighbor saw that I had a skateboard, and he was kind of like not making fun of it. Hey man, this board ain't the right board for you. This is like one of those really, really beginner boards. It's got the skid plat on it. It's got the nose guard on it. It's got the rails on it. The trucks are no good. So he was really like, in other words, this wasn't a professional skateboard if you really want to learn how to skate like me, because I was trying to do tricks like him, and I just couldn't achieve what he was doing because the skateboard I had just wouldn't allow me to. So I finally got a skateboard from the pawn shop, a professional one, if you will. It was a Pal Peralta board, I remember, and had all the indie trucks and the Pal bones and all that. And then I kind of got accepted into like the skater clan. There was like a little group of guys at school who were the skaters, and I was the new guy. And but in the skating community, man, it's all about encouragement, and it's all about like showing love and teaching. In the skateboard community, whenever a skateboarder tries to teach another skateboarder, it's always like pure, like from the heart, I'm trying to teach this person to be better. So I kind of learned those fundamentals with skateboarding. Over the course of 6 months to 8 months, I became very, 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 very good in skateboarding. I was a fast learner. I was already like doing some crazy tricks. We used to like go watch skateboard movies and doing the whole 9 yards, man. So yeah, just skateboarding with my friends in my first year of high school was really a big part of who I am, and really a big part of my past that not too many people know about. I have the tattoos all over me now, and people would probably never guess that that I used to skateboard a lot and go to the beach and surf as well. Summertime we'd go surfing at the beach, play 2-on-2 volleyball. We did some like I guess some white boy shit, if you want to call it that. But I got really good at skateboarding, and after like 2 years of skateboarding, I was pretty much like sponsorship, like really good. Like on the verge of that, man, the verge of sponsorship. I even skated at Lance Mountain's house from Pal Peralta. I started skating with a bunch of like professionals, man. I really climbed the ranks, and I got so good. I got noticed by everybody, and I became like one of the best skaters at my school. And that just seems to be like the story of my life. I've always tried to progress and conquer every boundary I have in front of me. So I've met like professional skaters, skated with professional skaters, and I just kept getting that much better and better and better. You know, I think my energy I put out there, you really do attract it. You know, because I wanted it so bad. And next thing you know, I'm fucking skating with Guy Mariano, Gabriel Rodriguez, and Rudy Johnson. You know, the three guys from Powell. I'm skating with Lance Mountain in his backyard over in Duarte. He lives like kind of in the hills. Got a big old 14-foot half pipe. We went to that, skating all that, and I just started skating with all the shop sponsor guys, man. So I was really passionate about skateboarding, man. I gotta say that. Aside from this soul music, and while skateboarding, you know, I was 14, 15, and that's when I was also getting introduced to this music that we're talking about as well. You would never believe it because my ear was everywhere. I mean, I was listening to Jane's Addiction, to Metallica, to just all kinds of shit. But I always had that soft spot for oldies because of my father. Back to my skateboarding in high school, man, there's a lot of different phases of high school fuckery I went through, you know, like all of us, right? So I'm a skater. Not only was I a skater, I was a tagger. So I was also tagging the city while I was skateboarding. So I was in a tagging crew as well. I played football. Fuck, I did all kinds of fucking crazy shit. I was like the man with many hats in high school. Like I was cool with the mobbers. I was cool with the skaters. I was cool with the jocks because I played football. Like I was just like that guy. Academically, I was a fuck up, bro. I fucking got kicked out of my high school in 10th grade. I ended up at Coronado Tech. Coronado was actually a continuation school. A bunch of taggers from the crew I was in at the time went to the school and graffitied the hell out of it. And, you know, most of us are dumb and naive, and I'm carrying around my backpack and my books and my folders, and it's just got the same writing. You know, all my shit's tagged on, the roll call, all the names are there, and the principal pretty much knew my rap. You know, he kind of had a hunch like I was part of this clique, and he pretty much called me in the office, and I was the only one who had like the evidence on my book, like on my backpack, like it says the name of the crew right there, and he's like, yeah, your crew came and like just destroyed the school. So basically I took the rap for it, man. I didn't snitch on nobody. But I ate the bullet for that one, and I got kicked out of school for not snitching and just taking saying it was me, basically. Like a group, not saying it was me, but just like not really saying anything, but just taking the fucking rap. So in school, you know, academically, I was just, all I wanted to do was skateboard. I didn't want to do any kind of homework. I was just all about trying to get sponsored now. I took it really seriously, and I just hang around a bunch of different crowds of people, you know, like I said, party crews were forming. I was also in the party crews, aside from the tagging crews, party crews, dance crews. You know, it's the fucking 90s, man. It's like 1991, 92, man. Shit was bubbling, shit was cracking, and I had my hand in everything. And so did everybody else at that time. I wasn't just the only one. I think everybody was just, you know, in the mix with, you know, friends with everybody. So, but yeah, that was me in high school. At this time, when I joined this party crew, there was a lot of things going on in my life as well. My parents split up when I was 14 and a half. My dad moved back to Pico. My mom kept the pad in West Covina. So now I don't have a father figure in my life. I'm doing whatever the fuck I want. I got a whip, and I'm in this party crew. I'm still tagging. I'm still skateboarding. I'm still going to the beach. I'm doing my own thing. I'm pretty much living my own life already at 15 and a half, 16 years old. I'm meeting friends, and we're throwing parties, man. It's like kind of like a new thing. I know they were throwing parties in the 80s, but this is my generation now in 91, and now we're throwing parties, techno parties, deep house. There was DJs, playing the shit and all that. So how did party crews reflect on me now? It's very entrepreneurial, very, very much put me in an entrepreneurial mindset of how to gather people, how to make it work, how to throw a party. There's a lot of different schematics that are involved to making a party crack and happen and be talked about. Our parties that we threw were very talked about. You had to build a name, a reputation, if you wanted your crews and your party to really always have the same people coming back, or more people even coming from further areas, just to see what the fucking hype's all about. You put the right DJs, blah 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 blah. I'm only 16 years old. I'm already learning this game. I met a kid. My mom, we ended up losing the house, and we moved to this apartment complex. We still stood in West Covina, and now we're in this complex called Sunset Gardens, I believe, on Sunset and Francisquito. And my brother Angel, he's like 3 years younger than me. he's like my little shadow, so he was in the party clueless. But it took him a while to really puberty to growth. He looked like a little kid, he's like, and he was a little kid, he was like 12 years old, but he looked like he was fucking like 9 years old, like his little baby face and all that. But I took him with me to these parties because him, my little brother, and he rolled with us, and he saw us drinking, smoking weed, doing bad shit. But his friends, I met a friend of his that was a little older than him, Danny, and that was actually my brother's friend, but he became both our friends because he lived in the same apartment complex that we moved into. And he was like this, geeky little, kid with nothing going on. And I remember telling myself, like, I'm gonna make a project out of this kid. Like, I'm gonna make this kid pretty cool. I'm gonna do like, this guy's like, I felt so bad for him. I'm like, man, I'm gonna make this dude cool. He's gonna hang, because I was pretty cool at the time. I knew the right people and all that shit, and I knew I wanted to, bring them in the circle. So about a year goes by, we're still partying and all this, and now this kid, that I met, his name's Danny. He was involved now with throwing parties and meeting the people I'm meeting, because we live in the same apartment complex. So he's constantly rolling with me everywhere I go. So we're close. So now we're trying to throw our own parties and throw our own flyers and make our own shit. So he's in high school now, right? And he took printing class and graphic design, and that was like new shit back then. Long story short, about a year goes by. He's now the king of the SGV, making everybody's flyers, graphic designing everybody's shit, and that's like my best friend. So I got my best friend, and now me and him are pretty much getting clientele. We're starting to say, hey man, you can get your flyers from us. We make you 5,000 flyers for X amount of money. So now we're kind of making money about making flyers for all these other party crews. We even did our own magazine called Mystique Dynasty. It's a small little paperback magazine, but still we created this magazine, and we kind of like, we're like the underground street beat, because you had Street Beat magazine going on at the time. And but we were like, for the hood, our little scene, our little area, and we're doing our own little magazine called Mystique Dynasty, and we're interviewing like our party crew heads, our chicks. Dude, it was so entrepreneurial, man. Like, you wouldn't believe it. We were selling ads in our magazine to record stores, to clothing stores. We're making money now, so we could keep the fucking magazine going. And on top of that, he's printing and he's building a bigger name for himself as Mystique Dynasty, Liquid Image Designs, back then, in like 93. And so he became like one of the main guys in the SGV, making everybody's party crew flyers. I was still party crewing it up, building my reputation and my name. And I was very known in the SGV back then. I even took on DJing a little bit, but not so much. I followed, cats like DJ Kazal, Modern Romance. Those are like the heavy name DJ. There's so many DJs, Jungle George, so many DJs, DJ Earthquake, so many DJs that I ran with and learning how to like play the house music with them. And we would go to DMC Records and buy house records and shit like that. So, but my name they gave me was Curious George. So I was very, very known in the SGV and surrounding areas, because my name was on all the flyers. And the reason why my name was on all the flyers, we knew everybody. So, it's like a shout out, everybody hits up everybody, like special host, like blah, 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 and Curious George. So my friend Danny, who's making everybody's flyers, when people were placing their orders, we asked them first, hey man, is it cool if we put my homie Curious George like on your flyer? And people didn't give a fuck. They just wanted to party, man. Like, yeah, fuck yeah, don't put his name on there. We don't care. So my name, bro, Curious George, like ended up on, even though I was never at those parties, but I did try to go to every party my name was on just to like do good by it. But yeah, man, there's times when my name was probably like on 30, 40 flyers every weekend. And I built a huge, reputation. You could ask people now to this day if they ever heard of Curious George from SGB in the 90s. They probably would say, yeah, but they wouldn't really know who it is. But that's me. I'm Curious George. If you guys heard the name from like 92 to 95, that's me, Curious George.
Excuse me, madam. You're standing still in a no parking zone. If you don't get a move on that body, I'll be forced to give you a ticket. So get with it.
Okay, so you know, I'm talking about myself in high school and all that, but the main reason is, you know, the foundation of me. And let me just go back to my parents. You know, this picture right here up on the wall, that's actually my parents. It's my mom and my pops. My dad was from the neighborhood. My mom wasn't from the neighborhood, but she lived in the white fence neighborhood of East Los Angeles. And like I was saying, man, they split up, but they definitely had an impact on my musical, what I'm doing today. You know, I started off, like I said, my dad playing doo-wop when he was taking me to the record stores with his friend Puppy. I gotta say Puppy because Puppy from my dad's neighborhood kind of like mentored my dad, you know. So Puppy was like above my dad with knowledge. Like Puppy was the guy who like really in depth knew it, and my dad was kind of like right there with them, or like, you know, Puppy was his mentor for sure. And yeah, my dad was always making his own tapes and playing them. My dad had like lowrider trucks, you know. This is like my dad, you know, the 80s and 90s. So my dad, he had Impalas and all that in the 70s, but when the 80s came, for some reason, my dad gravitated towards mini trucks. So my dad had like mini trucks. It was pretty cool. Like I remember like my dad dropping me off at high school, like in a slammed ass mini truck with fucking like, you know, deep dish rims, fucking blasting fucking, you know, his music, Alpine pull out, fucking the whole system going. You know, my dad was like a young buck, you know. And I remember getting dropped off feeling all cool, like, yeah, man, I got my dad's boat, you know, this mini truck and shit. Yeah, they definitely played a role in what I listened to, you know, as far as playing music and oldies. My dad playing records and my mom, and they're from two different neighborhoods, like I said. So when they split up when I was 14, that's just how I ended up in West Covina. Yeah, so, you know, I'm talking about my parents, and, you know, I keep bringing up the split up when I was like 14 years old. They were together since they were like high school sweethearts, since they were 18. They were together for like 18 years before they split up. You know, my dad, you know, God bless his soul, he was a heroin addict. You know, he was a functioning heroin addict. He wasn't like one of those, you know, deadbeat heroin addicts. You know, he was a functioning, at work every day, didn't miss a day of work. Matter of fact, I think I remember him like getting a reward for like never missing a day of work for 10 years. And he got like a 10-year plaque award for like never missing a day of work. And he was a really bad heroin addict. Like he had a very expensive habit. Him and his brother, which is my Uncle Raymond. You know, they were both heroin addicts from the neighborhood. And my dad was a heroin addict ever since he was like really young. So my mom really put up with him. And that was his, I think the oldies and the doo-wop and the music was really his escape as well. We have so many cigarette burn holes in my couch. You know, I remember growing up in our front room, our couches, we had to constantly every couple months, we had to get new couches and throw out the old couches because my dad would fall asleep with the cigarette in his hand, and it would just burn the couch, and put holes like all on the armrests of the couches. And no one really knew that I dealt with that, you know, my dad being a heroin addict. But, you know, he was a functioning heroin addict. He was a good man, and he provided for the family, and we made it work, man. I even went with my dad to do some stuff to, you know, acquire the money to get his drugs, because if not, he would get really sick. And so, you know, eventually it took a toll on my mom, and I think that's one of the major reasons why they split up. But yeah, it's out there. It's known. My dad was a functioning heroin addict. He was a heroin addict, and I remember a lot of bad things going on, like my mom pulling the knife on him, and him he was really addicted, man. He was also addicted to his music too. So he had two addictions. Watching my dad be a heroin addict, I was so numb to it, man. Like, honestly, if you live that life, I didn't really take a stand on who I'm rooting for. Like, oh, mom, I feel your pain and what you're going through, or dad. I was just trying to cope. You know, I didn't, it may sound selfish, but I didn't care what my mom was going through. I didn't care what they were going through because of his addiction. I was trying to fucking just, you know, have peace in the house, you know, and just have a regular family, a normal family. So I wasn't really rooting for my mom or rooting for my dad in an aspect of that. I remember just like, it became normal. Like, it was just so normal. Like the holes in the couch, my dad nodding off. Like, if that tripped me out, like, no, man, that was normal. Like, I grew up ever since I was a baby. Like, I thought that was normal. I thought every man probably did that, you know. Up until a certain age, of course, I learned that wasn't the case. I was just numb to it, and it was just normal, everyday routine. We would go to Monte, we would go to the Klingermans. He would get his fix. I remember, you know, maybe 8, 9 years old. And, you know, he would leave me in his car, and he would go upstairs. He would go in the apartment complex, and he'd be in there for hours. And me and my brother would be in the car left alone because he was slamming with his homies up in the apartment complex, and we didn't go in there. So that's what my mom would get pissed off about. My mom would find that shit out, that, hey, you left the kids in the car, what the fuck's wrong with you, blah blah. We used to go to the Whittier Narrows Park, which was like this weird place, but a lot of junkies would go there, a lot of heroin addicts would go there. You find a spot by the lake, and they have these bamboo caves that were like hidden, and you would see like other junkies in there slamming. So it got to the point where I got older, and I'm watching my dad slam. Basically, I'm in these bamboo caves, like, but he would take us with us because me and my brother, we were young, and we were like chasing lizards, looking at rabbits, and like looking at ducks. And my dad's right there with his homies, and they're like, you know, they're slamming right there. You know, they're putting the cotton ball, stoking up the heroin, they're lighting it. I saw it all with my own eyes. I was like really young, but I didn't think nothing of it, bro. I was just like, okay, well, you know, dad and his friends, they're having fun. You know, I knew they were getting high, but I didn't know what heroin does to you or how it makes you feel or whatever. And then we would just end up leaving. And it's weird because my dad and his homies, when they got high, for the first hour, they were like energetic, happy, they're happy as fuck. I never forget. They were so happy that they got their score, and they slammed it, and we would go, and by about an hour later, man, they would make it to the, you know, his dad's house, which is my grandfather's house. And they'd just be nodding out on the couch, playing records and shit, just like nodding out on the couch, playing the jams. Also, being with my dad as a heroin addict, this is something I really never talk about. This is how I learned to drive. You want some crazy stories, I'm gonna give you not crazy stories, but you want my story, I'm gonna give you my story. Like I said, my dad was a good man. He provided for the family. He never tried to like hurt nobody or nothing like that. He was just, you know, doing bad shit to support his habits. So I remember being like 10 years old, and like I said, my dad had pickup trucks, and my dad would make a game out of it on the Saturdays when he needed money. He would wake up me and my brother and say, hey, you want to go with me? We're going to go aluminum hunting. So basically, we would jump in my dad's truck, and we would go to like the City of Industry or like, you know, LA area where all the factories are at, right? And it's like a Saturday or Sunday, and all these factories are closed, right? And my dad had a hustle mentality, you know, to support his habit. He would recycle aluminum, but he wasn't recycling aluminum cans. You know, he was after like the big, heavy aluminum metals or copper. I remember taking spools of copper to the house and stripping it down. And all the copper inside, you know, it took a couple of days or a week, depending how fat the copper wire was and how much he got. But we'd strip that down. I'm like 10 years old, stripping down copper from my dad. Didn't know why. I just knew we're aluminum hunting, and my dad was gonna make money. You know, I mean, I'm reflecting back, I know why. But we would go aluminum hunting with my dad, me and my brother, my little brother, and he would break into all these companies, you know, with a wire cutter and break into fences, and he would scope out all these places that had like aluminum cylinders. We had a magnet. We all had a magnet. That's what was fun. So we would all break into these warehouses and stuff. And I had a magnet, my brother had a magnet, and my dad said, this magnet, if it sticks to something, it's no good. But if it looks like metal and it doesn't stick, call me. Like, it's Monday. That's aluminum. So to us, he made like a game. So me and my brother with the magnets, we're just like touching everything that looks metal, like magnet, and we're like, Dad, this doesn't stick. And he's like, yeah, it's stainless. My dad knew his metals, like stainless steel, it's fucking nickel. Like, he had the price breakdown for like all that shit, bro, because that was like his hustle. So he's like, oh no, it's nickel. Nickel doesn't pay that much money. It's like 3 cents a pound, and it's too much work. We want clean extrusion. You know, if you find an extrusion aluminum, that was like top dollar. So we would just do that, man. We would aluminum hunt all morning long and night long till we filled up the back of that truck. And this is back in the 80s, bro. So my dad would go to like the aluminum recycling centers, and he would like just unload, and they would weigh it by the pound. And I swear to God, man, every weekend my dad was making like I've seen him make $800 one time, you know, from that. And the reason why I learned how to drive at 10 years old is because my dad would teach me how to drive this truck and stick shift, you know, I didn't know he was probably plotting, but I thought he was just teaching me how to drive, and which he was. So it was probably killing two birds with one stone. But finally, I was like 11 or 12 years old, and we're aluminum hunting, and he's like, drop me off and drive to the back of the warehouse. So I felt really cool. Like I would drop my dad off, and there's nobody there. It's like ghost town. Like I'm on these empty blocks, and I'm in this truck, and I'm driving this fucking pickup truck. I'm like in first, second gear, and I'm like driving down the street, and I'm like gonna wrap around to the back of the warehouse to like go get my dad, you know. So that's really where I learned how to drive, was my dad teaching me, because we're committing crimes, man, and I don't even know it. You're learning about my childhood, kind of. This is my childhood, you know, going with my dad to do, you know, aluminum hunting, and, you know, watching him slam and helping him make money to get his drugs. And, you know, I'm like 11, 12 years old. This goes on for the next couple of years, and finally my mom had enough. And how did it affect me? You know, 'cause my parents split up, and it was really devastating, man. 'Cause besides my dad being an addict and all that, I still love the man with all my heart. Like, he was like the family man. He was reliable. Never, you know, he was a good man. You know, he wasn't like some like bum or nothing like that. You know what I mean? When my dad split, man, it just tore the whole family apart. And it was that time period, like, when I hit high school. So that's why skateboarding saved my life, bro. Otherwise, if it wasn't for skateboarding, I don't know what the fuck might have happened, you know. So I went to school. My parents randomly split up. I'm like in awe, you know. I'm like, fuck, my family is done and devastated, and what's gonna happen to my life now? Because, you know, at 14 years old, when your parents split up, like, it's like the end of the world. But and it was. I found skateboarding, and I found people who skate, and that's why I got focused and so good at skateboarding, because all my, whatever I was going through mentally, man, I just skated. I just skated it out. Just skated. I did some crazy shit, attempted crazy shit, tried some ballsy shit, and that's why I got good, because I didn't give, you know, I was crazy. High school, my dad, you know, they split up. My dad moves back to Pico Rivera, where he's from, moves in with his father, which is my grandfather. And my dad was very much still involved in my life, you know. He would come pick me up or visit me, and remember, now I'm like 15 and a half, and like I told you guys, my mom, you know, she handed me down her car. So now even though I'm living in West Covina, I'm still driving over to Pico Rivera, Montebello, East LA on the weekends. You know, not every weekend, but, you know, over the course of, you know, me being 15 and a half, 16 years old, I'm back and forth from the SGV to LA, seeing my old homies over there that I grew up with, and of course visiting my father. And that's when we would go to breakfast, and then we would go record digging. You know, we'd go to, like I said, we'd go to Wenzel's Records in Norwalk a lot. That was one of my favorite spots, Wenzel's. Sounds of Music, of course, was a big spot. We would go buy oldies, because my dad and his homie, like, they were slamming, they slammed together too. And not just him, but other people. But that music is what fueled them when they slammed to listen to. So, but they had crazy dope doo-wop collections to listen to anyways. They were just music junkies on top of being just, you know, heroin junkies. And I remember always going, and by this time, this is like 1990, 89, 90. And I'm, of course, now soaking up my dad's music. I mean, I've listened to my dad's, the soundtrack of his life, his whole life, with the doo-wop. Now, you know, this is the way for me to hang out with my dad, because my dad's, you know, separated. So now I'm trying to hang out with my dad and his homies, because my dad always hung out with his homies. So, and they were always about the music, the oldies. Aside from the heroin addiction, they were wax addicts, you know. So I would just go record digging with them, and I was really infatuated and really like, wow, like these records are awesome, because I would try to put myself in their shoes, like, what the fuck are they going through to just slam, get high, and like listen to these jams that just like, that was like their ultimate high. So aside from that, my puppy and my dad were making their own mixtapes as well from these records. So I'm listening to my dad, and I'm trying to put myself in my dad's shoes. And now I'm really paying attention to the music. You know, I'm like 16 years old, and I already knew what oldies were, of course. Natural High was bumping, and I was starting to, even though, you know, in the party crew scene and skateboard scene and all that other scene, like I said, I still had this music very much involved in my life, aside from all the other music that I was experiencing, like with the techno in the house. I still had that oldies. And the reason why the oldies really struck a chord in me is because my dad was addicted to them. You know, he was addicted to those oldies as much as he was addicted to heroin. So it really, like, wow, like, what's in this? Why is it, how is it so powerful? So I started really paying attention to what's my dad listening to. So I was hearing the stories in the oldies and the doo-wop, and even in the soul music. They make some dope soul tapes too. And that's when I was like, that's when I knew, like, man, let's go. Like, when we go record digging, I started getting excited, like, yeah, let's go. So I started buying records, right? Because I'm trying to, like, you know, do good by my dad. And like, I'm only 16, 17 years old now. And with the little money I have in my pocket from selling bud and shit, you know, on the side, doing my little shit on the side, I'm buying music. I've always been buying music. I've always been buying CDs, oldie CDs. You know, like I was buying like Donnie Albert CDs on collectibles. I was buying like the Ethics, because that was like the rare soul back then too. I started getting turned on to, like, you know, the Ethics, Continental 4, Black Ivory, because Marcos and my dad were hip on that too. Like, that was like rare shit as far as soul music goes. So I started elevating towards soul music. But when I was buying doo-wop with my dad and buying records, that's when they were teaching me the core basics of, like, hey, my dad was like, if you really want to buy records and you really want to, like, you know, be true to this and you know, be like what we're doing, the way we're doing it, then all these records here, these are like phony knockoffs. You don't want these. I mean, the song is there, but that's not what you want. You want the original record, because if you're going to collect these, the whole point of a collector's existence is to collect the original, right? If you're a collector, if you're going to be a collector and you're a baseball card collector, chances are you're going to want to collect the original. You're going to try to find the original and put that in your collection, you know? So same thing with music and records and record labels. So you kind of wanted to get that original record. And some of them were, and they knew their shit. My dad be like, oh, that's a $5,000 doo-wop record. You ain't never going to own that. Like, we don't even got that. So sometimes in doo-wop, it was okay to settle for a second press or a third press, because there was like no way you were going to find the original, you know? So, but still, the main core ethic of that was, like, always try to get the original label, because, you know, if you're trying to be a collector, that's what we do, you know. So I started listening to soul music, you know, like I said, the Continental 4, Black Ivory, and I'm learning that music also from my dad and his uncle Bucky. They're playing these crazy soul songs, B-sides of like Delphonics, B-sides of Harold Ralph Melvin and the Blue Notes, like songs that weren't on the radio, you know, that they were putting on these tapes, badass songs. And you had different neighborhoods also doing this, making tapes. So like different neighborhoods, it was almost kind of like they were battling each other of who had the baddest mixtapes. You know, I remember my dad and Puppy getting mixtapes from other neighborhoods and really like picking them apart. Like, oh, that's a bad jam. I don't even know that one. Oh yeah, well, fucking like Body of Watts did this tape, and like they got down this shit. You know, so they were giving props to different neighborhoods' tapes. You know, that's how I started getting into records, like going record collecting with them when I was like 15, 16 years old, and really buying records now, like, and knowing, like, okay, I need to buy it. I need to figure out what's real and what's fake. So I'm talking about these tapes that different neighborhoods played, and I'm like 16 and a half, whatever. So I'm collecting records now. I'm building my little collection up of, you know, soul. Like, I'm buying the Ethics, I'm buying Black Ivory, I'm buying Continental 4, I'm buying Lee Williams and the Symbols, because I'm learning this from like my dad's homeboy and my dad, and their style, you know. So they're making tapes, and my dad, they had people buying their tapes, you know. And I think this held true for other neighborhoods, you know. If it was a really nice oldie tape, like, you have to go paying $20 for a tape, you know, $50 sometime even for a tape, depending like how bad they were into the music. You had some really bad music junkies out there that were paying top dollar for dope ass tape, but it had to be a 90-minute tape. It couldn't be no hour tape. $50 for the 90-minute tape. So with me in the party crew scene and me having that entrepreneurial mindset and doing all kinds of things and trying to please my dad and his homie and trying to, you know, have that connection again, I started making tapes, oldie tapes. I wanted to show my dad, check it out. I wanted to show Marcos, check this shit out, what I got, because I was collecting songs that Marcos didn't know. I remember I told Marcos, I'm like, hey, you know this song by like the Sensations? And he was like, nah, like Marcos talked really funny. His name's Puppy. Nah, I don't fucking know that jam. What is that? I'm like, oh, trust. So I ended up making my own mixtape, and I gave it to my dad. I gave it to Marcos. Blew them away. They were like, what the fuck? Like, that's badass. That's a bad jam. They knew a lot of the songs. Eddie Holman, like, you know, not Hey There Lonely Girl, but like, you know, the other songs. Hey There, Eddie Holman, like This Can't Be True. That was a fucking jam back then, bro. Like, This Can't Be True, or like the Do Up the Vows, like I Want a Chance. So when I got their reaction from the tape I made, I think that's what made me or break me to continue on with music or just leave it alone. But the reaction I got from my Marcos and my dad, I was like, damn, these guys are like certified bona fide OGs, and I fucking just blew their minds with the shit I was finding and learning and taking it to that next level. Because like I said, I really was diving deep into it, you know, once they taught me the basics. And so now I'm selling tapes. And fast forward a little bit, I'm about 17 now, 17 and a half, and I'm making these tapes, and I'm at my aunt's birthday party. My little cousin, she was probably like 2 or 3 years old, her little birthday party. My Aunt Alice, she lived in West Covina. Her and her husband was the vice president of Group Car Club in the late 70s. His name's Carlos Luna. So he knew a lot of people, like, you know, all his homies were like, you know, gangsters from East LA and different group, you know, and car club members. I remember a bunch of veteranos were there, a bunch of gangsters were there, because that's, you know, that's who their friends were. And I'm being like 17 years old, and I have my own mixtape, right? And by this time I have a lot of better oldies that I've stumbled across over the past 6 to 8 months that I've been learning. So I knew a bunch of homeboys were gonna be there, and they were playing oldies, of course. And again, it's a little two-year-old party, or she's 3. My cousin Crystal at the time, she was really like young, and she was like turning 2 or 3. But you know how we do it, Chicanos, how us Mexicans, we get together and we drink. Doesn't matter how old you turn, you know. So at nighttime, when she put her daughter to bed, or you know, and it was time for the adult time, I'm right there drinking a pisto with my tia, my mom, and all her homeboys and homegirls. They're playing oldies, see, because that's how we grew up, just playing oldies. So my tia's playing jams, and I remember telling my tia, and all the homeboys were right there from the car clubs and different barrios, and just all gangsters. I remember telling my tia, hey, they got this badass tape, tia, let me play it, you know, let me play it, you know, let me play this tape, trust me. She said, okay, mijo, like, play it, put it in. Pop the tape in, played that shit. Blew everybody's minds, bro. People were like, what the fuck is that, Jordan? So there was this one particular guy named Edmund, right? And he walks up to me and he goes, hey, where'd you get that tape from? And I go, I made it. This is mine. He goes, bullshit. Like, who made it? Like, I want to know, because I know people with music like that. He goes, did you get that tape from Robert Ramos? I'm like, who's Robert Ramos? He goes, dude, I'm gonna call him tomorrow, and I'm gonna see if you're bullshitting to see if you can get that tape. For that, you know, that tape was that good where he didn't believe I made it. You know, he was like, nah, man, a lot of those jams I heard, like, that's the same shit that this dude Robert Ramos is putting out. Like, that has to be a Robert Ramos tape. I'm like, nah, dude, this is mine. So the next day he came back to the pad, to my tias, to like clean up the, you know, they were really good people. They came back to clean up the mess they made. So they came back, and he knocked on my door, and he goes, yeah, I'm gonna call Robert. He's about your age. I go, really? He goes, yeah, man, I gotta introduce you guys. Like, you guys are like, so he calls Robert on the phone, like right there in front of me, like, you know, not on a cell phone, but like we go in the house. He's like, hey, did you sell a tape? Are you selling your tapes like out in West Covina area? Like, he was like picking his brain. Like, did you sell any tapes to anybody in the West Covina? Because there's this dude here in West Covina. And he was like, these dudes are from East LA and shit. So he was really baffled that, you know, in West Covina, he heard this kind of music from a kid like me, like a regular hip hop looking skateboard kid. But Robert goes like, nah, like, I don't know him. But Robert agreed to meeting me. And Edmund's like, yeah, he said he wants to meet you. Like, he's down to meet you and shit. I'm like, oh, cool, man. He goes, yeah, you guys might kick it off, man. You guys are like the same age. I'm like, oh, that's what's up. I'm like, where does he where does he live? He goes, Pico Rivera. I'm like, that's my dad's neighborhood. Like, and he ended up living in my dad's neighborhood. So after the phone call that this dude Edmund made, I meet Robert like a couple of days later, and it's in Pico Rivera, like I said. And you know, I came with my tape, and I came with what records I had, because I did have records. And the dude was giving me a rundown on Robert, like, hey man, this vato's like this vato's got crazy records, like, oh, you're gonna trip out, like, you guys are gonna hit it off. This dude Edmund was really like, you guys are gonna hit it off at the same age. So sure enough, I knock on the door, shook hands, what's up, how's it going, blah blah blah. Right away he takes me into the, hey, what do you want to come dig, you want to check out some records, like, what do you want to do? I'm like, oh, yo, like, he goes, yeah, I sell records, bro. I also sell records. I'm like, oh, okay. So I go in his room, and fuck, bro. So I walked in Robert Ramos's room, and, you know, he has an average size room, you know, average size square room. Along the whole entire wall, and then another wall going that way, like an L shape on the floor, was side by side, all these boxes. He must have had about 60 of these boxes in his room on the floor, like just along the wall. And they were all full to the gills with 45s. He must have had about 30,000 records in his room, right? So I'm like, just, and he's like, just go ahead and dig, man. He goes, I also sell records. I'm selling most of these records I'll sell. I'm like, wow. So I'm digging in his boxes, and I don't know nothing the way this guy knows his shit. You know, he knew everything in those boxes. Like, I'd pull a record out, he'd be across the room and like barely see the label, but like, oh yeah, you don't want that, that's some rocker. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, the dude was like 20 feet away and fucking already knew. I'm in some random box, pulled the record out, and he already kind of like looked at it and like already called out what the fuck it was. I just wanted to be like him at that point. So I'm digging through these records, man. I don't know none of this music. I'm like, what? I don't recognize any song. I don't recognize any group. I don't know shit in these boxes. And Robert's like, oh yeah, you're gonna like a lot of the stuff. I'm gonna play it for you. And he's like, yeah, man. I've been collecting records since I was like young, like, 14. And I was just listening to his. He didn't really give me his story, but I'm just listening. I'm hearing him out. Yeah, man. I really know my stuff, and I'm just blessed. He was really humble. I'm just blessed to know it, like, I just buy out collections, and I'm really into this music. And I didn't realize who I was talking to, even though he was only like my age, like 18 years old. I didn't realize who I was really talking to at the time. He was just, we met, we hit it off because we talked the same language, we were like naming groups, but he was way more far advanced than I was with as far as knowledge of like these obscure groups. I knew nothing about it. I ended up going under Robert Ramos's wing and learning from Robert. And that's when I really started like showing my dad and puppy, like, wait till you hear this shit, So, but yeah, man, it was like fucking destiny. Cause I remember like I was transitioning my life, with these oldie tapes, and I was really proud of what I was making. And I was like, I just knew like I had to meet that person. I just knew, just like I did in skateboarding, just like I did in party crewing and meeting the right people and rubbing elbows with the right people. And I just knew that with this oldies thing, I just knew that I was gonna meet the right person and something special was gonna happen. I swear to God, it may sound cliche and it may sound stupid, but I fucking knew like some kind of destiny was gonna come out of this, because this music was that special. It was that brand new. It was that different. And it just had that special magic in the air about it. There was just something about it where you just knew like something big was gonna happen.
Let me prove that I love you. I promise never to stray, never to go far away.
So back when I met Robert, and I'm making my own tapes, and I was making the transition from tape to CD. How I found that out, because there was these other CDs that came out. There was, like I said, Toker's Oldies and Soulful Things. So we were like picking our brain out, like, how are these oldies on CD? Like, it's not this stuff you would hear on a tape, but it's on CD. How the fuck did it end up on CD? So I remember digging through the Discoveries magazine and digging through the Goldmine magazine. I'm stumbling across the pages and I see an ad. in the paper, and it says, transform your tape onto CD. And I'm like, bingo, what the fuck? Hell yeah. Like everything was just working in my favor, right? I'm like, I wanted to do this. I wanted to make a CD, and the answer was right there. So, and how crazy, trip out on this is even crazier, like almost like destiny. So I look at the ad, right? And this magazine has ads from all over the country, right? New York, Pittsburgh, Chicago. I look at the ad because I'm calling the number, and I look at the address in the ad, and the place was called V Corporation. I'll never forget it. It was V Corporation. Transfer your CDs to tape. I mean, transfer your tape to CDs. I said that backwards. I look at the number, and it's like 626, and I'm like, holy! And I look at the address, and it's like something Covina Ave in Covina, and I'm like, what the? Like I literally felt like God was helping me that much. It may sound stupid and crazy and unbelievable, but I swear, like I get the goosebumps thinking about it. Like I literally felt like a prayer got answered, and like it was so close to home. Like man, like it couldn't be more on a silver platter for me, man. Like to find this place to transfer my tape onto CD, and it's right here in Covina. Like what were the odds of that? We had that friendship for a while now. You know, I'm meeting Robert. I'm making my CDs. And I'm visiting him, and I'm just buying basically records of him, because that's kind of how he introduced himself to me. Like, oh, you know, we're cool and all. I'm glad to meet you, but you know, I want to sell you records. You know, I'm here to sell you records. That was like his MO to me, you know. So you know, I had that buying record mentality, you know, relationship with him, buying crazy records. So he started coming over to my house with the box of records. And he was selling me some heavy shit, man. Shit I never heard that he turned me on to. Like I remember buying the Citations, Hey Mr. Love for $50 off Robert Ramos. I remember him coming to my house and he sold me the Disciples of Soul Peekaboo for $50 mint. He sold me the Fabulous Performers on Blackjack for like $50. And $50 was a lot of money for a Sweet Soul record, because Sweet Soul records were typically $10 to $20 but these were special Sweet Soul records. To hear that kind of music in 1995, 96 was just mind-blowing. Like what is this? Like I mean, you knew it was oldies, but it was just a whole different level of music. And Robert was selling me these records. So what ended up happening was, you know, I started buying a lot of like When I Had You Baby, the Soul Sensations, like that was like a $10 record back then. And just those kind of records, you know, like Tony and the Hearts, those kind of records is what I was buying from Robert, and I had never heard of him in my life. So as time goes on, I remember Robert invites me to this oldies concert. You know, like I said, I didn't know it then, but I found out later that Robert was a part of this underground oldies compilation thing. This whole time I'm talking to him, I didn't really know what he was doing in the background. He didn't really like talk about it for whatever reason. I have no idea to this day. But I remember he's like, "Hey man, do you want to go see you want to go see Bloodstone and Barbara May?" I'm like, "Yeah." You know, like how much? And he's like, "Oh no, I got you. Like backstage passes and all that." I'm like, "How?" Later on, he reveals to me like, "Oh yeah, like I throw these concerts, by the way. Like I'm with ITP. And I'm with Alan Beck, and we tour the nation, and we throw like concerts, Slapstick and Wicked, and the Superbs, and Barbara Mason, and you know, Bloodstone." I'm just like, what? So I finally learned who he is, and this is like Rob. Like he's, yeah, man, those underground oldie compilations. Like that's been me. You know, I was the one who did underground oldies. You know. And underground, like I said, underground oldies was like this huge national distribution, like rare oldies compilation, man. And to find out that like I've been talking to the mecca of the oldies world was just insane. And aside from so at this point, you know, I'm introduced to Robert, and Robert has also another partner that is just as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable than Robert, and he's older. Robert's really good friend at the time was a man named Sal Rodriguez, Mr. Chavo. And at the time, Sal Rodriguez was doing his oldie compilation CDs called City of Angels. Really obscure, like stuff that was just changing. It was changing the dynamics of the older world as those CDs were releasing. And so now you have Tokers, Soulful Things. As far as like heavy, rare, sweet soul, Lost and Found Volume 1. So now months go by, and I remember I made Volume 2 of Lost and Found. And Volume 2 of Lost and Found, if you compare my Volume 1 of Lost and Found to my Volume 2 of Lost and Found, it's like a night and day difference. Like, here's Volume 1 with like Eddie Holman, Mary Wells, Billy Stewart, Donnie Albert. Like, you know, you're run-of-the-mill kind of, you know, Delphonics. You're kind of like run-of-the-mill common groups, but rare songs, but still kind of run-of-the-mill stuff. Now you see my Volume 2 of Lost and Found, and it's like the Sensations, When I Had Your Baby, Citations, Hey Mr. Love, Fabulous Performers on Blackjack, The Superbs on fucking on Altine, the Ambers, Baby I Need You on New Art. Like, all these records I was buying from Robert. So my next volume, I had a stack of fucking firepower, you know? I had all these crazy rare soul records, and I released Lost and Found Volume 2. And nothing really hit the scene aside from underground oldies and Soulful Things and Tokers. When Volume 2 of Lost and Found came out, that thing had such a crazy sweet soul sound to it. Like the music on there, like if you look it up, man, Lost and Found Volume 2, Giotto Vandal, like straight sweet soul and straight like, what is this? Well, that was all music that I bought from Robert Ramos and Sal, you know. So I ended up making my Volume 2 with it. So I ended up meeting Sal, and we were a trio of friends, right? So Robert's at this point in time, Robert is now having a fallout with Alan Beck and the whole underground oldies thing. Sal is on his second volume of City of Angels. I'm on my second volume of Lost and Found, and we're doing good, you know. We didn't do it for money, but you know, we're just putting it out there, and these record stores are like, hey man, we'll pay you like $8-9 a CD. I'll take 100 of them. You know, I remember going to Sounds of Music, No Rock Records, by the way, rest in peace to Richard Sneed. You know, fuck, such a tragic news to hear. He just recently passed away. He could vouch for everything I'm saying, but he's no longer with us. But yeah, you know, I was supplying No Rock Records, one-stop distribution in downtown LA. Long story short, man, I'm selling thousands of units of CDs at $7 a pop wholesale every month. Like, I remember, not that I'm bringing money involved, but I remember like having so much money in my pocket, but that money was also we're buying records. You know, I'm like 19, 20 years old now at this point in time. And, you know, I'm starting my own family. I remember buying like stupid paintings, leather couches, throwing fucking crazy ass barbecues, you know, just, you know, supplying the whole spread because I had the money. So, because we were doing that good selling records. So anyhow, Robert left ITP Records, and he kind of calls me up and goes, hey George, I've been thinking, man, if me, you, and Sal get together, I want to start my own record label. I'm like, yeah, like, you know, we were homies. I'm like, yeah, bro, I'm with it. Like, what's up? He goes, it's gonna cost about 10 grand to get it going, but if me, you, and Sal could kick it off and we go 3 ways, you know, like $3,300 a pop, we could start this record label and I could get it going, because he knew the right people in the right places, you know, because he's been hanging around the industry. He goes, are you in? I'm like, I'm in. He hits up Sal, hey, I left Underground Oldies, or they left me, I don't know, whatever it was. Basically, it was a fallout, but I want to start my own label. Let's put our money up and let's come up with something. He goes, I remember him telling me though, and he told Sal, he goes, but the minute we become business partners and we go 3-way on this label, he goes, you got to stop doing your CDs, and Sal, you got to stop doing your CDs. And we're all going to come together and we're all going to focus on these CDs that we're about to unleash. So I go to Robert's pad, and I instead of 3,300, I just gave him 3,500. Remember, as a paper, he gave me a paper receipt. He handwritten it. I, Robert Ramos, received $3,500 from George Miller Jr. in efforts to help start a label, blah, 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 blah. Robert hits me up. I go to his pad. He goes, hey, man, come over to my house. And I'm like, let's brainstorm. Let's try to come up with a name for this label and what we're going to do, what our next move is. I remember we went to Circuit City, and with my portion of the money, we bought a computer, an E-machine. I'll never forget it. It was a fucking E-machine, and he bought it. And that was going to be the company computer. Like, okay, George, like, this is the company computer, blah, blah. And then the rest of the money went to the legalities of starting the record label. Now we just had to come up with a name. So me and Robert are in the front of his house in Pico Rivera, literally in the front yard, kicking rocks around. And he liked the name of the CD I had called The Lost and Found. He goes, man, I really like that name you got, Lost and Found. Like, I would really like to just keep it rolling with that, but I don't want to copy that. You know, that's like, I just want it to be totally different, but I like the name Lost and Found. I'm like, yeah, like, you know, like, he goes, I really like the artwork on it too, man. Like what you got for the front cover looks really, really, really dope. It was really eye-catching back then, you know, for that time era. It was really eye-catching. It really did well. So he was already thinking business-wise. He already knew you had to have a really catchy cover. We were kicking around a bunch of different names, and then we finally got to the Lost and Found. I don't know, lost this, lost something this, and then we're kicking around all these names. And I don't know who said it first. I can't remember if it was me who uttered it or if it was Robert, but the word uttered out, lost soul, oldies, lost soul, yeah, lost soul. And we were like, yeah, lost soul oldies, that sounds dope. Like, fuck yeah, lost soul oldies. And I remember he's like, okay, what's the name of the record label? And like simultaneous, we're like, Lost Soul Records. And simultaneously, we kind of like said it at the same time. So, okay, like it's gonna Lost Soul Oldies and Lost Soul Records. That's it. He called Sal. Sal was on board. And that was the birth of Lost Soul Records and Lost Soul Oldies. Lost Soul was born. I was pretty much under Robert's wing. You know, this guy was like the king of all this rare soul music. I was very new to this. I was pretty green to it regardless. You know, Robert's had way more experience and way more knowledge. Him and Sal, man, they had the library. They were the library of Lost Soul Records. My role in Lost Soul Records was Robert really liked my out-the-box thinking, my creativity, and he liked like the way I made my CD cover. And with that being said, I remember talking about my high school days. My friend Danny was the one making all the flyers for everybody. I'm still best friends with this guy. So Robert was like, how did you get that cover like to look like that? I go, dude, my friend Danny, he's a graphic designer. Like, we were old high school friends. Like, he made the cover for me. He goes, man, I want Lost Soul Volume 1 to look like You're Lost and Found 2. I'm like, yeah, we can make it happen. Like, just let me know. But I don't want it to be exact, you know, but I want it to really kind of look alike. Because I really like the way it looks, you know, it has the LA background and, you know, blah, blah, blah. They had the bomba on the front, and that's kind of was the style for the late 90s back then. So it was like new and fresh and innovative, you know, for a CD cover. You know, the two volumes look alike. So I brought the creativity, and I brought my friend Danny over, and, you know, we're, you know, we helped Robert bring his Lost Soul to fruition. You know, it happened. You know, granted, Volume 1 was like a reference off my Lost and Found Volume 2. The next volumes were Sal and Robert. Now, again, Sal and Robert were the library of Lost Soul oldies. You know, I was new, under their wing, didn't really know shit. Granted, I was doing my own compilations and making good cheddar, you know, doing good with that financially and building a name for myself. I just felt, for the bigger picture, joining this trio and being a part of Lost Soul Records, that something special was going to happen maybe not at that moment, but later on in the future, like it was going to become something very special. I already knew that, so I stuck with it for the long haul. I was hoping to get my own series, because when we started the record label, you know, I was kind of promised I would get my own series under the label like immediately, but it just kept getting pushed back. Robert and Sal kept, you know, God bless them, they kept putting out Lost Soul oldies. You know, they were dropping 3 at a time sometimes, volume 1, 2, and 3, and then volume 4, 5, and 6, all in one chingazo, like bam. They were dropping them like it was hot. They were just making them like. So I remember telling Robert, like, hey man, so when am I gonna get a piece of the action? You know, when can I like drop my CD under the label? And granted, you know, Robert being a part of ITP Records and knowing all these concerts, you know, it was planned that Lost Soul Records that we were going to try to also throw concerts and keep the concert theme going, but that never ended up happening. So as me being a part of Lost Soul Records, I just found that I was really the sales guy, you know, and it later on in the future, it really ended up helping me out in the future. But at the time, I was really the running back for Lost Soul, because like I said, Sal and Robert were really the brains and the music behind the compilations. Like volumes 1 through 15 of Lost Soul, I really didn't contribute any music. That was just Robert and Sal's collection, and they were pumping out the Lost Soul oldies, and then they did the Lost Soul, Lost Ladies of Soul. They did like 4 different, you know, titles under the Lost Soul umbrella. And then finally, about a year later, you know, of me being loyal and me being the salesman for Lost Soul, because I was up and down the California coast pushing Lost Soul records. Like I would go to Sal's or Robert's house, and I would load up my whole car with thousands of CDs, and I would come back at nighttime to Robert's and hand him the feria. He would cut me off my chunk, which was nice. It was a good chunk. Paid for my gas, and then broke me off proper, you know, because we made thousands of dollars every weekend. There was a lot of CD and record stores, and I was the guy really dealing with all those record stores. Everybody knew my face. I mean, yes, Robert and Sal did drop off their CDs and did sell the compilation, but that was more my job, and I enjoyed doing it. You know, I really enjoyed doing that for the company and being that guy for the label. While Robert and Sal were just continuously putting out the music, I was continuously being the running back and like dealing with sounds and distribution companies and mom and pop shops from like the 805 all the way to San Diego. And I was like driving, like snake running, like every weekend. Me and my lady at the time would take those trips, take 4, 5, 6 hours to you know, to hit all the stores, come back, snake back. And I remember me driving and her counting hundreds of dollars in the passenger seat, thousands of dollars. Just, yeah, like, I think I got like $8,000 right here, you know, just selling this music for Robert and Sal. And knowing that one day soon, I was going to have my own series under the Lost Soul Records label. But for now, this is what I was doing. I was quarterbacking it. I was getting paid for it. And I was doing PR. And that was my role for the first like year of Lost Soul Records. And then finally, Robert said, hey man, let's start working on your project. You know, but we're licensing all the music, you know, so we had to go to the Swamp Dog, and we licensed the Whispers, you know, What Will I Do, Timothy Wilson. You know, my series was called The Heart and Soul. So if you go on Lost Soul Records and you look under a CD series called The Heart and Soul, there's 2 volumes to that. I ended up doing 2 volumes, and I finally started doing my series like in 1998 or 99 is when The Heart and Soul like was introduced into the Lost Soul Records label, and that was mine. On the back of that, it says George Miller Jr. Productions, which he appointed me like the main producer of that record, of that series. So I was in charge of that, and he let me handle that. But he did help with all the licensing through Swamp Dog and people like that. And we put out the focus of Heart and Soul, because Lost Soul Records, man, believe it or not, the music was so rare and so different at the time. I remember people not liking it. I remember like the average person like hearing like, you know, Shades of Sensations, but then you left me like, they were just puzzled, like, what, like they didn't like it, like, it's kind of weird, like just put some Brenton Wood on, like I like Brenton Wood, you got Brenton Wood, you know, because I remember trying to sell and spread the fucking Lost Soul gospel out there, you know, like we're trying to push this new music, this new sound. And at first it was a hard pill to swallow for a lot of the like regular people who like used to Art Laboe stuff. They like it because they just didn't know it, you know. So I remember that aspect about it as well. But those are all the little ups and downs I went through until I finally got my Heart and Soul. So now Heart and Soul was supposed to tone it down and not be as rare as the Lost Soul series. Heart and Soul was supposed to be like my Lost and Found, more familiar groups that people might remember, like, oh yeah, this has the Whispers on it, but I never heard that jam. This has Timothy Wilson on it, I never heard that jam. And then we would sneak in a couple rare ones like the Eminons, One Heart, and like, you know, Citations, Hey Mr. Love ended up, you know, surfacing on that comp. Soul Sensations ended up surfacing on that comp again. And but we always try to put like some big names. That way, if you're in Tower Records and you're looking at this new comp or this cool drawing by Paul Parilla, Joker, he was a dope ass artist who made our covers as well. That's who made my Heart and Soul covers, and they were really catchy covers, pretty cool for the time. And yeah, we wanted people to recognize some of the artists like the Whispers, Timothy Wilson. So we had some big name artists on the comp, but some of the more obscure recordings that weren't really played on the radio or even known by anybody, but they were badass jams. So go check out Heart and Soul. And that I think Heart and Soul, I did volume 1 and 2 from 99 to like 2001. But meantime, I'm still doing the PR, and it was just more of a love for being a part of that label and pushing the movement, because that's what it was for me. You know, the money, even though I wasn't making the crazy money that I was when I was doing my own thing, I just felt like complete because I felt like I was doing my calling, you know, pushing this music. So for volume 1 of Lost Soul, this is like a little unknown thing, but I'm gonna spill the beans right here. So it was late at night, and Robert wanted, there was no Google. We couldn't just Google like Los Angeles and like it would pop up, and you know, there was no internet, you like dial up internet. Like it was just, we just did it old fashioned way, you know, and creating a flyer, a front cover. So me and Danny were like, we couldn't find that LA background that we used on my Lost and Found. Like he must have threw it away. So we're like, damn. So we go to CVS and we go to the little postcard section, right? And we couldn't for the life of us find a Los Angeles postcard. But we did find a postcard of Tokyo at nighttime. So and it was about, the store was about to close, and we had to get this cover done for the next day. So we just buy it. We're like, no one's gonna fucking know if it's Tokyo or fucking LA or what have you, you know. So we buy the Tokyo postcard, and it's a nighttime shot of Tokyo, and that's the background of Lost Soul Oldies Volume 1. It's not even Los Angeles, man. It's fucking Tokyo. And then you got the 48 Fleet Line bomb, you know, floating, and we showed it to Robert. You know, Robert, we made it, and Robert approved it. He loved it. But something that never really leaked out all these years is like, that background on Lost Soul Oldies Volume 1 is actually Tokyo at night.
You told me all those lies.
Lost Soul ran its course. I learned a lot from those fellas, and I really grew and evolved as a person with that next level of music. My Pop and Puppy were super proud and mind blown. We even had radio commercials, man, on like Mega 100, and I had my name on the radio. I don't know if anybody would ever remember that, but I remember like the Lost Soul Oldies commercials would come on, and you know, so I got thrown a bone a lot, you know, like, you know, I got called out as one of the producers on the station. Like I heard my name on the radio. Like, that was cool as fuck. And yeah, man, so Lost Soul ran its course. I'm not going to speak on how or why it ran its course and stopped, but let's just say it ran its course. I think in 2003 was one of the last compilations that got made. After Lost Soul ended, I just went back to work, and I was fucking really miserable, and I was still buying records. The evolution of collecting records changed. You know, eBay came out, you got the internet, you got, you know, just easier ways to obtain these crazier rare records, right? Because Robert and Sal had these crazy rare records because they were getting them from guys back east, and you know, just really seasoned collectors from all over the Midwest and East Coast, you know, shit that you can see here in California at a random record store. So when the internet came along, you know, I started really buying up crazy records. You know, like I said, I learned a lot from Robert himself, and like labels, and just the sound and the new vibration of music that we were headed for, the new sound that we were trying to outdo each other and bring it to the light of people, the masses. So about 2 years, man, I'm on eBay. I'm on, you know, just different Craig Moore websites now. Then there's .coms. You could go to like a record store online and like buy records, and you know, it's crazy. You can meet collectors on, you know, MySpace and interact with them, and they're selling records, and I started accumulating a lot of crazy records for those 2 years. And in 2005, I remember telling myself, like, man, you know what? I really miss, you know, doing my own, you know, being a part of the Lost Soul Records camp, and really pushing out the music, man. Like I felt like a piece of me was dead. So and I seen all these other CDs coming out, you know, like and I would, like, you know, I would read them and you know, see what they had and see what was coming out, and put my ear to the street and kind of get a vibe for what was going on in that time. And I remember telling myself every time I heard a new CD, I was hit, man. I was up on game with all these records. I already knew, like, all the records all the CDs that were coming out, I could already call what they were going to put out, because you could see the trend in what records were selling and what records were hot and what records were sought after by this little small group of collectors that existed. So I could almost call out what the next comp was going to come out and what songs are going to be on there. But I always had the one up on them, you know, because like I said, I was buying some crazy shit. I had the right connections with the right dealers from like Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania, and Hank Feigenbaum, Ed Engel, Jerry Pateri, James P. Pateri. I mean, like, those are the guys I would call, you know, Mike Noriega down here. And there's another guy that I'm forgetting, Rich Rosen in Vegas. As much as people have a lot to say about him, that man has the crazy connections and dope ass records. And there's a few other guys I know I'm forgetting to mention that have some like just out the wall shit, man, that I was buying. So in 2005, I have all these crazy rare records that aren't on CD yet, right? Because we're really big on that. You know, when we made these CDs, with Lost Soul, I learned, hey man, when you make a compilation CD, you don't ever want to repeat. You don't want to put out the same song twice, and you don't really want to copy this guy's CD. You don't want to put out, if he has this rare song out, you don't want to put that on your CD, because that's like stepping on toes. You know, plus you're biting. It's like a copycat move. You don't want to do that. You want to try to come out with the rarest shit first. So that's what I learned by running with Lost Soul. So I came out with Gangster. I'm like, you know what, in 2005, I'm gonna start my own thing. I finally came across some money. I started my label. Me and my brother and my cousin Nick, we were like, you know what, I told my brother that, hey man, I want to start a record label, and we came up with the name Sons of Soul Records, which was me, my brother, and my primo Nick. Same way we did Lost Soul, just how I learned. We came together, put money in, I made it legit, got the paperwork on it, started right away, called Danny, did some artwork on it, put it together. I already knew all the contacts, remember? I'm running up and down the coast, meeting every mom and pop shop. I knew everybody, and everybody knew who I was, and I had a really good relationship with everybody. So the minute I created Gangster Soul Harmony, you know, I came up with the name Gangster Soul Harmony in 2005, and I dropped my first CD, which was Gangster Soul Harmony Volume 1, and all the songs on there were the first time they ever hit CD, like Full in the El Caballeras, you know, 4 Below Zero, Tell Me Why, The Superbs on Altine, you know, all those songs that are on Volume 1 of Gangster Soul Harmony, those songs were never on anybody else's CD. Those were all from me. Like, I didn't copy nobody. Everything on that volume was fresh, brand new songs. So when people bought it, it was all fresh, new shit, and it was dope shit like that. It was really like cool. But then Volume 2 came out, and Volume 3, and Volume 4, and every volume I came out with, I kept that standard of always bring out new shit first. So from 2005 to about 2010, when I was really going hot and heavy with releasing these, I pretty much made it my business to like not repeat any songs or copy anybody else's stuff. So I had to really know who had what songs on what CD, that way I wouldn't step on toes. So I was really up on game with what songs were on one CD. I made it my job to know that. You know, that's why today I'm so knowledgeable, and I can still recall like who put out what song first on what CD, because it was my job to know that so I wouldn't step on toes. And so I would come up with fresh shit. So on my volume 2, The Webs, It's So Hard to Break a Habit, and you know, all these songs that you guys now know that you find on Gangster Harmony, chances are that was the first time they ever hit the fucking light of day. You know, aside from the artist releasing it, is when I released these compilations. Main Attraction, Keep On Walking, The Bonnevilles, I'll Be Right There, Siberians, Cranberry Won't Help the Hurt. These are records I was buying, and nobody else had them on CD until I put them on CD. And I took pride in that, man, because I learned that from Lost Soul Records. And pretty soon, a few years later, you got YouTube came along. And yeah, pretty much anybody can start a YouTube account, and that's a whole different topic, but pretty much everybody would create a YouTube account and take all these oldie CDs, upload them into their account, put a fucking different picture on, and now they're playing, they're furthering our music that we put out on CD with the comments they're leaving behind, that people were leaving behind. People, it looked like they were taking credit for what we were doing. Like I see comments like, hey, that's a badass jam, what is that? You know, so-and-so, and you know, over the pages, like, you know, so-and-so oldies, that's a bad jam. And the owner of the page would be like, gracias, it's from the collection, I hope you enjoy it, thanks for stopping by. And they would give us no mention. You know, nobody would be like, oh, well, you know, you should go buy it on Lost Soul Records, or you should go buy it on Gangster Soul Harmony, or this song, I got it from Soulful Things, or this came off of Tokers, or this came off of this. Nobody really got any mention, you know, because people were just fronting and maxing, chilling in front of the YouTube, they spend all day waxing, you know, fucking fronting, you know, perpetrating that this music was their music now. And it really is, it's for the people. But our namesake and our legacy kind of got lost in translation when all that happened, you know. Our whole like identity started, like we started losing our identity of who we were. Now YouTube just took over and was like, all these songs were just getting uploaded. And now the history of who, it almost didn't matter no more, you know, because YouTube was just making it so corrupt of us as collectors. You know, our pride of what we did was diminishing in front of our face, and we're not getting credit for any of it. Granted, we're not the artists, and we know that, but we're the ones who brought it to light in the first place. You know, we're the reason why everybody knows these jams. You know, people who made these comps have a big role in why it's, like yourself probably knows these songs, you know, without even realizing you probably heard it on YouTube. But if you go before that, chances are if you root it back, you're going to root it back to one of these compilations. Sons of Soul Records is starting, and I'm going hot and heavy, but I'm working. Remember, I have the job, I got a family going now, I got young kids, and this music's always been a love of mine and a passion and a hobby of mine. And I got my hand in a bunch of other things too besides this music. I do volume 1, and then I do volume 2 by myself. You know, all these crazy group harmony records that I had that I released for the first time ever. You know, and then volume 3 comes around, I'm doing volume 3. By the time I get to volume 4, I'm on MySpace and I'm meeting people, and now we got the social media platform working in our favor and spreading this music. You got other collectors, you know, exposing rare music from all over the place, and it's really, I can see it really happening. Like, it's unfolding, like, wow, this thing's really snowballing and growing into this bigger and bigger and more people, because everybody's always loved oldies is part of the culture, but like this rare oldies is really catching on now, you know. Like, it's like I already knew that this can be the next big thing. Like, this rare soul sound is like the next huge thing. Now I got my CDs out there, and I'm legit. I put my information out there. I put my name. I put my MySpace. I put all my info. Get a hold of me, talk to me, whatever. So I started getting some, not fan mail, but I started getting like on MySpace, people hitting me up, like, "Hey man, what the like tripping out and nice to meet you." Like, and a lot of people thought that I was just some older guy, you know, because no one remembered. There's really no internet, so no one could see who's behind the music. So I would always get like man, I thought you were like 50 years old. I thought you were some old veterano like doing this, you know, like how are you so young and you know all this music? But people are just mind blown just by that fact alone, you know, that we started so young doing this, you know, with that kind of knowledge and that kind of ambition, what we did with Lost Soul and rolling over into what I've been doing. I'm still relatively young. People just thought I was like some old veterano dude, and I'm like, they see me on MySpace, like, what the fuck? Like, there's no way this is you. I'm like, yeah. So anyway, there's a couple people hitting me up, and this one person in particular, he's like, hey man, I really love your oldies. Like he came at me like a fan. So we hit it off really good, and we're talking, and he knew his oldies, you know, because he, of course, from the previous years, he was buying all the Lost Souls, he was buying the Tokers, he was buying anything that was a rare compilation. This guy was buying, and he knew his music. So we're chopping it up like, cool, like, oh man, I can relate to you. And he was like my age too, like maybe a little bit younger. So we're really chopping it up, and I'm like, hey, what's up, bro? Like, what do you know, like, because yeah, man, you know, I live over here in Monte. And I'm like, oh fuck. I said, I live in Amani, you know, like I'm right here in Monte. Oh, no way. Yeah, you know, is it cool if I meet you? Like, it was like, he was like, is it cool if I like, meet you, man? Like, I'm not trying to be weird, but like, I'm like, yeah, bro, like, listen, I'm down, like, you know, because I see this as a business, and I'm trying to like be friendly and trying to like really meet and greet, you know, type shit, you know. Not that I'm any rock star, but here's a dude saying that he enjoys what I do. You know, he loves the music, so, and he literally ended up living about 4 miles away from me, and I go to meet him. And the dude was down to earth. We met, we kicked it off. And I'm like, what's up, man? My name's George. He goes, hey, what's up, man? My name's Bobby. I'm Bobby, you know, so his name's Bobby Medina. I wanted to help the guy a lot, you know, because he was a really cool person and he had his little hustle going on. And I was too busy working. So it kind of worked out because I would have Bobby help me out looking for records, you know, because now we got eBay going on, right? We got like websites going on like Craig Moore, there's .coms, and he was really computer savvy. You know, so he was always in front of his computer, and he was really computer savvy with just being on the computer, you know, because he wasn't working. That was like his hustle, like doing what he had to do on the computer. So I would give him a list of records. I'm like, here, bro, this is what I'm looking for. Because he asked me, like, how could I help you, man? I want to be down with this. You know, I want to be down with this, what you're doing. I really see the big picture. Like, he was like me, you know, when I joined Lost Soul. Like, he was in it for the movement of it, you know. And I seen that it was just genuine. I'm like, yeah, bro, like, if you want to help me, then here, bro, here's what I'm looking for. And he didn't really know any records of that caliber at that time. He knew his music and all that, and he wasn't really collecting records until he met me. And then he started buying these records because he just really, really liked it. You know, he was really like, wow. Like, and records were cheaper back then, more obtainable. They weren't like hundreds of dollars like they are now. You could still get a cool ass record for like 25, 30 bucks on eBay. So, long story short, man, Bobby Medina, I met him like in 2006, maybe 7, something like that. And he helped me out for the first 6 months, man. He was really just my eBay guy. You know, I was at work and I would give him a list and he would call me on because we have cell phones now, the little Razor flip phones and shit. Nothing crazy. You still couldn't get on the internet with your phone. It was just a phone. It was a cell phone. And he's calling me and he's like, hey, bro, like, I found this record you were looking for. It's a bid right now. And he was that guy, man, that helped me snatch those records, you know? Like, I was at work. When I was at work and I couldn't bid on the record, Bobby was the one bidding on the records for me. He would call me literally like 2 minutes before it ended. Hey, man, I found this, you know, the Willpower record you wanted, you know, I forgot the name of the group, but it's on Willpower, very expensive record now. It's like at $200. What do you want to do? And I would tell him, like, bro, you know what? Just put like 400 max bid. I'll pay for it, because he would be logged into we grew a trusting relationship to where he would be in my eBay account, right? So it'd be like me bidding. So he's logged in my eBay account. I'm like, bro, just put 400 on it or whatever. He's all right. I'm like, but wait till like the last like 10 seconds before you do it. So I was teaching him the ropes in the game about how to bid and how to get records, and he was winning records for me, man, and I was paying for him. But without Bobby's help doing that, a lot of these songs on Gangster Harmony would have never seen the light of day, because I wouldn't have won them, you know. So I already knew when I won these rare records I already knew that I was going to further share them with the masses because I had this outlet, these CDs, and that was my passion. My drive was to really share it with everybody, like get it out there and let people hear it, and just let them see the culture behind it, with the drawings and the prison art and the whole package. I just wanted to share with the world, and Bobby was down with it. So Bobby was winning a lot of records for me on eBay. I mean, I was paying for him, but he was putting the time in, and he started venturing off on his own. He started like coming across records that I didn't know. He started learning records just by being on eBay so much. He started coming across records that he liked, right? And so he started saying, hey man, like, if I find a really nice record, could we put it on Gangster Soul Harmony? Like, but for me, like, it'd be my record. I'm like, you know what? This dude's cool. Like, he already proved his worth, that he's a homie and he's down. I was like, yeah, bro, you know what? I'm going to make you like an executive producer. Like, I'm going to bring, like, kind of like what Robert and Sal didn't really do for me immediately. I wanted to do for him because I was in control. So I give him, yeah, bro, this is how we're going to do it. Whatever songs you bring to the table, when the CD gets made, I'll give you a cut of the CDs, or if you want some money for the record, I'll pay you out, for it. So I was putting money in his pocket, so he usually took the CD chunk route, so I'd make 1,000 units of CDs, and if Bobby contributed like 4 or 5 records to the compilation, he was happy to have his name on the back of the compilation, which I put his own shout out section, and I got to love his family, his wife and his kids, and we pretty much did that for the next couple of years, that relationship where we're helping each other. He's putting on his records, and I'm giving him a chunk of the compilation. So I'd make 1,000 CDs, and I would go, here, Bobby, here's like 300 CDs for you, or here's like 350 CDs for you, bro. Like, that's all your money. Because he would wholesale them. He would put them on eBay for like $15.99 because he had his own eBay account now. So he has an income now coming in, with all the compilations that we're making. So I'm helping him out, and he's doing that. But meanwhile, now he got bit by the collector bug, and now he's buying all these records, and he's finding his own self. He's finding his own flavor, his own style of music. And after a couple of years, I guess what we were doing just wasn't enough for him. We started coming up with these other oddball CDs just to generate money. When we did these oddball CDs like World Famous Oldies or Sweet Soul Rolas, or mid-tempo Sweet Soul Rolas, and all these other stuff, we made those CDs with all the music that never made it on Gangster Soul Harmony, because he collected a lot of records that I didn't, it wasn't really my flavor, or it wasn't really for Gangster Soul Harmony. It wasn't rare enough, or it didn't have a certain sound that I wanted to portray for the record label. But they were really good songs, don't get me wrong. They just weren't good enough for the vision I had of what I wanted Gangster Soul Harmony to be. So all these songs over the couple of years accumulated. So now with all these records, and even I had songs that were fillers that I really didn't care about. So we were like, what are we gonna do with these records? And Bobby had an idea. Hey, well, I'm gonna make these CDs. I won't put our name on it. We'll just create some random CDs. It's good music. It's not out there. No one knows it. And it's good music. It's not the rarest or craziest, but it's good enough to where it will generate money and people will buy it. And it's a win-win for everybody. So, we were behind a lot of crazier CDs that no one really knows that we were behind. Like I said, we were behind the World Famous. We were behind the Sweet Soul Rolas, the Mid-Tempo Soul Rolas. And then I did like up to 3 volumes with him on each of those, straight from vinyl. And then he ended up just taking it over because it was just too much for me to take on. I had this label to worry about, so he had more free time than I did because I was still working. So he was really pushing the agenda of putting out more and more and more and more music. So he started coming out with other compilations that he was creating, like Journey of Soul. And man, I can't even remember all the compilations that he came out with, but the dude had a bunch of records that we didn't use for Gangster Soul. And he ended up finding his own style, his own music, and coming out with those compilations. And I guess, by a couple of years of that, we kind of split ways. I had my 10-year anniversary party in 2015. It was probably the last time that me and Bobby actually, as a duo in this record label, did anything together as a team. And then from that point forward, I already saw what he was doing and where he was going with his projects. And, the only thing I could do is let the bird fly, That's my piece to him, and he's doing his thing, man. So yeah, Bobby Medina was a part of Gangster Soul Harmony. I mean, that's pretty much in a nutshell Gangster Soul Harmony. And it wasn't just me, it was my idea and all that, but I did meet people along the way, and Bobby Medina was one of them. That's why his name's in the back of most of those CDs. So, big gracias to you, Bobby. Thank you for your involvement and your contributions. And, best of everything to you, brother. There was another individual who, it's only right that I mention names on my journey of this, because that's what it was. It was a learning experience. So there was another individual with my volume 4. He went by the name of Albert Descara. He cameoed on that volume as well. So just, gracias for that, brother. And after that compilation, and I decided to learn, I started learning like, hey, you know what, man, things were going a different direction, and I wanted to keep it true to myself. So from volume like 5 on, I pretty much did it my way. Started the Southern Soul Swingers back in 2009, November 6th to be exact. And there's a, let me speak on that real quick. The guy who got that whole thing together, his name was Smiley the Scumbag, or Smiley from Buena Parque. He's the one who got the idea together to get a bunch of collectors at the time who were like the shakers and movers in the scene. And keep in mind, man, this is like 2009, 2010. There's still plenty of music. I'm still doing my Gangster Soul Harmony, and I now become a Southern Soul Spinner member, So Smiley gives me a call, gives Ruben Molina a call, gives Solera 5150 a call, and then Conejo was hanging around too. So we were the foundation of we all agreed and started and came up with the name, the Southern Soul Spinners. Actually, if you want to get really technical, the first original name was Southern Soleros. And then, a month or two later, it changed into the Southern Soul Spinners, and the core group still stuck around and started doing shows. Now, for me, it kind of worked out because, it just felt like it was coming to this point in time. It was the first time ever in California, Southern California, and Los Angeles mainly, that like collectors came together that were the shakers and movers, the ones doing things, and like we kind of like formed like Voltron, and like anybody who was anybody behind the scenes making big, like Arlene made a big name on YouTube. Ruben, he's always had a big name, with his books and his early concerts and just his knowledge of Chicano soul and just soul in general, and just being the mentor that he has been to a lot of the collectors in the Chicano scene and sweet soul scene here in California, Los Angeles. And then myself, doing the compilations, we were still on social media, Unfortunately, like it would have been great to have, Sal Rodriguez or, Robert Ramos a part of this, but they never joined social media when it came out. Like I think when Lost Soul fizzled out in the early 2000s, they kind of like stood low key as well. Like they never really popped up on any kind of social media platforms, period. So it was kind of impossible to find these guys, but it would have been amazing if they were like involved with the evolution of that. So anyways, it's like 2009, and now I'm making my CDs, and now I've become the Southern Soul Spinner, and now, it's this whole new thing, we're a bunch of collectors, and we're like, yo, we're gonna play our music for the public audience, so it kind of worked out because, making these compilations and Arlene, uploading her records onto YouTube, it just kind of, the other YouTubers would just kind of attack that, and put it on their YouTube channels because it started getting scandalous and blown out of proportion. Like every time I would drop a new CD, or anybody who dropped a new CD, it would just end up on YouTube and it would be shared by thousands of people, and they would get, not the credit, but they would get the that they would get our music. And that kind of held true with Arlene uploading her videos. They would kind of copy the sound and maybe put a different picture up, but really Arlene was the one who like uploaded that picture. So in 2009, it was really Ruben, Arlene, myself, and really making the noise here in Los Angeles still. And it worked out for me, you know why? Because we kept discovering new records. We kept bringing to the table every week, man. We're winning records on eBay. We're dealing with collectors. We're bringing new sounds to the audience. And we were like, you know what? I remember at the table, we were kind of fed up. Like, you know what? Playing this live for the people, even though the ultimate goal is to share the music with the people, we kind of decided, let's share it for this music with people in a live way and see how that works out. So we were renting out VFWs. We ended up flying out to Chicago. We ended up going to Vegas. We ended up like, you know, becoming our own little like entity, like Voltron and of collectors. And we created our own fan base live. And we had like 300, 400 people coming to our shows, man, getting all dressed up. And we were just playing the records. Now, the beautiful thing about playing the records live for people was we kept bringing new content, right? New records to the scene, to brand new stuff that no one's ever heard, stuff you can't hear on YouTube or stuff you didn't hear on the new CD, because we kind of said, you know what, we got kind of fed up with our content ending up on YouTube and just, you know, put out there like that. So we were like, look, if we play for the public, they get to visually see us and they get to hear new music every time we do a show. And you can't find it on YouTube at the time, and you couldn't find it on CDs at the time, because I stopped putting out certain songs on CD and Arlene stopped uploading certain records. And if you wanted to hear the new shit that we were buying, like, because we were using Facebook as teasers too, like, man, you know, Arlene got like 4 new records, man, it's the shit. Oh, I can't wait to play them for you guys. So we all kind of like bounced each other's energy like that on social media to try to sell ourselves. Man, George got that heat. He fucking got like 5 new records in, like, can't wait to hear it. And the only way you were going to be able to hear it is if you came to the Southern Soul Spinner show and we played it live for you. And maybe if you were recording it on your phone or like a you know, VHS camera, you might have captured the music, but you weren't going to be able to upload it on YouTube and like end up on a CD or end up, you know, our music wouldn't end up on other people's stuff with other people taking credit for it. So that, for me, it worked out that way. That's my opinion. That's one of the reasons how, I mean, that's one of the good ways how it worked out for me, you know, because like I said, I was kind of fed up with everything ended up on YouTube, and it was really cool to like premiere my new fucking shit live for the people, and it was dope. It was an overall insanely dope experience. You know, we did that for about 3 or 4 years, and then that came, you know, obviously it came to an end like everything, you know. But the evolution of the scene, man, I was a part of that, and I think that's that chapter for the Southern Soul Spinners. And okay, so you know, while I'm being a Southern Soul Spinner in 2009, we're doing shows and we're doing you know, venues in about right at Christmas time into the year 2011. You know, 2011. Not too many people know. At least now, the new scene, they really don't understand like all the things I've been through. Like, I had some of the craziest records of that era. Okay, let's just anybody could vouch for that. And from 2009 to 2011 in LA, California, I was one of the guys with the craziest records in this box, straight up. You know, I was bringing all that new shit to the table. You know, I was the one innovating and bringing the new shit that you guys never heard. You were learning it from me at that time down here. One of the guys. I'm not saying I'm the only guy doing it, but I was one of the guys that was bringing that shit to the table. So I had these crazy records in my box, these crazy rare records. And even for back then, they were crazy rare records. They were like $500 a record, 400, $1,000 one of them. And even that was like when records barely started hitting the $1,000 mark, wasn't that era. And not too many Sweet Soul records were hitting the $1,000 mark for, you know, 2010 or 2011. It's just not too many that were doing that. Yeah, so this night, you know, I went to go get tattooed my knuckles, and I came back from scanning my records in at Danny's shop. You know, we were doing a project, and rather than just pick through my record box and pick those certain records, I didn't have time for that because I was in a hurry for whatever reason. So I just grabbed my whole box and I took it with me in my car, in my trunk. And this was earlier, like at 5 or 6 p.m. during the day. So we went to Danny's, did that, scanned in all the 45s. I put my records back in my trunk. I went to go see Tattoo Nene at Sick Jack Studio. I got my knuckles tatted that night. It says Soldier right here. And then I went home, called the old lady, hey, what do you want the kids to eat? Bought the food. And I yelled at my nephews and his homie, like, hey, help me bring the food in because it's a shitload of food. Because my instinct was to pop my trunk and grab my records first and take the records in the house, right? So these my nephew and his friend, they just darted out of the car, didn't hear a word I said because they're blasting their iPod. And it left me to grab all the food and all the fucking containers, and I'm out the car, shutting the fucking door at my foot, and, you know, all pissed off. And I'm knocking on the door, and I go in, and I put the food on the table, call her, hey, come and eat. And my intention was to go right back outside, get in my trunk, and grab my fucking record box. And I live in a good neighborhood, you know, Covina. There's no gangs right there where I live. It's a nice neighborhood, but still, you know, it was just a really habit for me to just grab that record, because there was, like, honestly, a 200 count record box. Everything in there was crazy. Street value back then was probably 65K. Probably 65K.
Probably 65K.
Probably 65K in records, I would say. From everything I accumulated over the years, and if I was to put a street value on it, because me and Nick, I used to every, like, once a month, you know, stack up my records, and this is my $100 record pile. This is my $500 record pile, and they were like stacked up. And I used to just, like, you know, evaluate my records and see what my worth was every now and then. So I had a rough idea of what it was. So anyways, as soon as I was about to go outside, I get a phone call, right? So I answer the phone, and I'm like, yo, what's up? And it's Conejo, you know? So we start talking about some record he wanted to buy off of me. And we just start chopping it up. You know, it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm on Christmas vacation. I got work the next day, but still I'm chopping it up with him. I'm like, yo, what's good? Blah, blah, we're chopping it up, right? And I didn't go outside and get my records, right? So before you know it, me and Conejo, we're chopping it up till, like, it's like midnight now. And I got my knuckles tatted, and I go and take a shower and scrub my knuckles and all that. And after I hang up the phone with Conejo, I totally forgot about getting my records out of the trunk. I go in bed, put the covers over me, I lay down, and then all of a sudden I remember. This is the part that kills me every time I think about it. My eyes are closed, and I'm laying down in bed, and I'm like, my eyes just open. Bing! George, your fucking records are in the trunk, fool. And I'm just, like, talking to myself, like, oh, my fucking records. So right away, I threw the covers off me, because I'm only in my tank top and the boxers, because I just got out of the shower. It's like 2 a.m. And I get out of bed, and it's fucking cold as fuck, bro. It was a cold ass night. And I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I ain't going out there. Like, I'll just get them in the morning. Like, I go to work in 4 hours, 3 hours, you know. I'm tired. I'm just going to crash out. Long story short, I get to work. I tell myself I'm going to get my records out of my trunk, but I wake up late, right? I wake up late, and I just rush in the car, jump in the car, and I jam to work. I didn't even think twice about the records because I was, like, really running late to work. And, you know, my 8 o'clock break came around, and I see the sun's rising already. It was a clear, hot day that day. And I'm like, fuck my fucking records. I go to run to my car, open my trunk, and my whole trunk was empty. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, who's playing a joke on me? Like, what's going on? I call the house. I'm like, hey, did you guys, like, empty my trunk out? Did my nephews go back in the car and, like, bring the CDs in or bring my record box in the garage? Can you check? I honestly thought for about a week and a half or 2 weeks, I swear to God, I thought someone was playing a practical joke on me, because we used to watch MTV Punk'd. That's when MTV Punk'd was, like, all big. So I thought someone was trying to punk me, bro, for real, like, some real shit. I was like, all right, I know I'm getting punked. I was trying to go along with it, bro. And, like, after about 3 weeks, I was just like, I used to even ask, even a month later, I used to, like, look at my old lady at the time, like, are you sure I'm not getting, are you sure, are you guys really playing a joke on me? Like, come on, tell me, like, it's been a month already. I was really trying to hope that it was a joke, man. And it took a really long time for it to really settle in. And yeah, man, I lost everything, my rarest shit, man, and you know, I had to bounce back from that because that would have crushed anybody. But you know, I'm in it for the long haul, bro. Like, I was like, you know what, fuck that. I'm just gonna keep. All I could do is just keep doing what I know and keep going, keep collecting. I was a Southern Soul Spinner. I was a collector playing my collection for people. So I was kind of useless as a Southern Soul Spinner, you know, and because I didn't have no records to play. Rene Ruelas, one of my good friends, who also was a Southern Soul Spinner, he gave me like a nice little healthy stack, and everybody from the crew actually kind of helped me out. I remember Ruben gave me a stack of like some James Brown stuff, and everybody kind of like passed me a little stack, you know, hey brother, like fucking sorry man, but you know, everybody kind of contributed the little stack. But I remember Renee gave me a really nice big healthy stack of some good shit, and it really like gave me the motivation to like get back in the game and like, you know, pick up some more heavy records. And it was a crazy long road, man, and I've never been the same, because after losing all that, man, like I didn't even care anymore. I could have lost whatever. That's why after that point I really started selling records, because I already had that detachment. I didn't really care anymore. Like if I could lose that, like I have no problem selling this record to you because I've lost worse, you know. So that's why I could really easily detach from a record as well, if I know it's going to go on to the next collector and they're going to appreciate it more than I do at the time. Because sometimes I get over a record, you know. It'll take me a year or two and I'm done with it. Like, you know what, I'll just pass it to the next person who's going to appreciate it more. So I started learning that more. I always bought and sold my whole life through, by the way, too. I mean, I wasn't one of these hoarders. And nothing wrong with being a hoarder, but it just wasn't me. I've always sold and bought records to like get to the next record. You know, that's kind of how, because I'm not a rich fan, you know, even though I was making money with CDs and all that, I had bills, I had 5 kids. I had a lot going on financially. So I wasn't really like, even though I was doing okay, I wasn't really rich to like buy whatever I wanted. So I had to sell heavy records if I wanted that next heavy record, you know what I'm saying? So that was always the way I did it. And it was nothing to me to let go. Even to this day, that's why I do Sold to Me, you know, like now I really like have no problem with selling records to people, and even heavy records, man. I hear people say, how could you sell that record? I was like, I would never let that go. I'm like, trust me, bro. There's gonna be a point in your life where you're gonna get to that point where you're gonna let go. Okay, man, so it's been fun. This is pretty much the gist of me, the core of me, who I am, how I started, where I'm at today, and how I feel about everything, you know. So yeah, you could find me on Instagram at Vinyl Life. I have 3 different handles, but if you find me at the Vinyl Life, you'll see my other handles in the bio. But my other handles are Soul Supply Company, which is like my clothing line, and of course I have Gangster Soul Harmony, which is the page that's dedicated to everything related to Gangster Soul Harmony. And the Vinyl Life is kind of like my personal Instagram, but I mix it up with all the other 2 handles, you know. So the Vinyl Life is probably the more active of the social media platforms that I'm on. I do have a website. It's also in the bio of my Instagram, but I'll say it out loud right now. It's gangstersoulharmony.bigcartel.com altogether. Those are my handles. If you have any questions about who I am or any questions in general, want to ask me, just hit me up on Instagram. That's at the Vinyl Life with only 1 L, not 2, and just DM me and be like, yo, I saw your interview and I have this question for you, or that question. I'm always here to answer questions, man. So much love, respect to everybody out there. Keep the music alive by all means necessary. Let's evolve and adapt with the scene, and let's try to support each other. And you know, if you can, after watching this, if you can, try to keep it OG, man. I mean, that's just gonna make it that much tighter. But I understand the diversity in this. You know, everybody's in this for their own reasons. I'm just gonna be here being me, and you guys just be out there doing you. And I have no animosity or no hard feelings with anybody out there, man. This is one big scene, and let's all unite it and get it out there for the world. Peace.